Hey guys, Phil here with Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. Coming back at you with another episode of From the Inbox. So basically in this series we answer the questions that you guys either message us in our inbox, hit us up in the DMs on Instagram, or drop comments on YouTube and Facebook. So this time we're going to be going over, can I tow with my lifted truck? So we've had a couple people ask questions relating to this, whether it be just having a taller truck, running taller wheels, or taller tires I should say, wider wheels, and how does offset affect towing. So we're kind of going to dive into that and explain that more in detail. So when you lift your truck, a couple things happen, and a lot of this is really obvious, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through it. But obviously lifting your truck means your truck is now higher, therefore you've also raised up that center mass, and so you have a higher center of gravity. In addition to being up higher, by changing the geometry of your truck, you're also going to create more body roll. So if you're to turn left or right, because you're so much higher in the air and you have that higher center of gravity, the chances of your truck rolling or leaning to one side is going to be greater than it was when it was at stock height. So when it comes to towing, there's a couple things that need to be addressed when you do this. So if you have a regular like bumper pull trailer, you know, where you have a receiver, you put your hitch in and you tow it behind your bumper. If you lift your truck up, say 6 inches, your receiver is now going to be 6 inches higher as well. So you're going to want to get a drop hitch to compensate for that. And then keep in mind that the bigger your drop hitch, you're actually lowering some of the towing capacity just because it's not designed to be pulled from that low of an angle. So you're kind of changing some of the geometry. Now, on like a 6-inch lifted truck, that's not really a big deal. You're not losing that much towing capacity. So you're pretty much fine by running with what the manufacturer recommends. If you have a fifth wheel or a gooseneck trailer, again, if you lift your truck up, that's 6 inches, you're lifting up the mounting point where your trailer is going to connect. So if you don't have an adjustable neck on your gooseneck trailer, then your whole trailer is going to be sitting at a steeper angle. And if you have your load unbalanced where more weight is to the rear, that can cause some stability problems when towing. That's when you'll see the guys that their trailer's sliding all over the road. That's obviously not something safe to do, because you always want your load to be as level as possible. So truck, trailer, load, all should be sitting level. So on most gooseneck trailers, they have adjustable necks. So you'll be either undoing bolts or pins, kind of depends on what style of trailer you have. But you can raise up that gooseneck, so one piece kind of sits in another channel, and then you'll be raising that up so that the mounting point comes up. And you're just going to want to make that sit flush with the bed of your truck so that you can pull that trailer level, like I mentioned. So also when you're installing a lift kit on your truck, oftentimes it's going to come with new shocks or different coil springs or different leaf springs. There's a ton of different options when you're buying lift kits. If you have questions on them, you can always shoot us an email to info@customoffsets.com when you're purchasing, and our lift kit specialist, Brad, will be able to recommend products that are best for you. So in most cases, like I said, you're swapping out shocks. So one of the questions that we get is, will I notice any more squat compared to stock? So I went out and watched a couple of different videos, read on a lot of forums to see the comparisons between the two, and for the most part, a stock truck has some sort of rake to it, and rake is when the front sits lower than the rear, so it's angled downwards like this. They do that on purpose so that when you add a load to the bed, you're going to level out that truck. And on average, I would say trucks usually squat about 2 inches, with like a mid-size load. A camper is a good example, something that, depending on size, is right between as low as 6,500 pounds up to like 10,000 pounds, depending on what you're pulling. But anywhere in there, you're getting about that 2 inches of drop. When upgraded to a different lift kit, a lot of times it's blocks in the rear and you're utilizing that stock suspension. So it's kind of the same thing. You're really just taking what your truck has and bringing it up. So again, it'll have some rake to it, unless you have like a torsion bar key set up and you crank that front up to raise it up, or you use a smaller block in the rear so that it sits level without towing. You can still have some rake to the truck, so if you do haul a lot, you're going to want to keep something similar to that factory rake so that when you do load the bed, it sits level again. So when it comes to towing, I think the biggest con of towing with a lifted truck is the noticeable power loss. So when people are lifting their trucks, obviously they're usually doing it so they can put on larger wheels and tires. And by having that larger tire, you're affecting the final drive ratio of your vehicle. So essentially it requires more power and more revolutions of your drive shaft and your axles that in turn are gonna go through the whole system to then turn your wheels. So if you have 37s, it's going to take more effort to make one full revolution of that 37 than it would if you're making a full revolution of something smaller, you know, like your stock size wheels and tires. So by having those larger wheels, you do notice a power decrease even in regular driving. So now if you're adding a load behind your truck, like I said, whether you're pulling a gooseneck or a car hauler or a camper or whatever you're towing, any noticeable weight back there is going to slow you down significantly, as it would as if you had a stock truck, but it's more noticeable when you have these lifted trucks, not only because of the larger diameter tires, but also you do get more wind resistance and stuff like that, because as you're bringing that truck up in the air and exposing the suspension components, there's just more resistance. So one of the ways you can combat that is if you were to re-gear your truck, so you'd be affecting those final drive ratios and get something that can handle the power better. Along with re-gearing, you have to keep in mind if you have a four-wheel drive truck, you need to re-gear in both the front and the rear. Obviously if you have two-wheel drive, it's just in the rear. And then you also are going to want to get something that you can calibrate your speedometer with, because it can be off by a couple miles per hour with the larger wheels and tires, but if you start changing your gearing, you're going to notice that your speedometer can get way off. So you're going to want to buy a calibrator to correct that. On the opposite end of the power loss, you also are going to have more problems stopping. So whenever you add wheels and tires, you know, something large to your lifted vehicle, you're adding a lot more rolling mass, which is something that greatly affects your stopping abilities. So if you still have your stock pads, rotors, and calipers, you're going to notice when you go to stop your newly lifted truck with those bigger wheels on there that it takes longer to stop, and it might take more force on that brake pedal. Again, everything you do in your vehicle is then translated to what you'd be doing if you're pulling a trailer. It's just amplified that much more because you have that much extra mass behind your vehicle pushing it. So obviously, if you're going to be hauling a heavy trailer, I'm sure you already know you should really have a brake controller to control the trailer brakes. If your trailer doesn't have trailer brakes, you just want to really pay attention so you're slowing down well in advance, because adding all that force behind your truck pushing it, as well as the rolling mass of your wheels and tires, is going to greatly impact your ability to stop. Something really important to consider if you're looking to tow with your lifted vehicle is going to be your tire selection. I personally take tires super seriously because it's really the only thing that connects your vehicle to the roadway, so it's a very important part of your vehicle. Now, one of the tires we recommend if you're going to be doing a lot of hauling is the Nitto Ridge Grappler. And the reason why we recommend that is because it's available in an F-load or a 12-ply. And they actually call it 12-ply rated because with today's technology, they might actually have only 10 plies, but it's just as strong as 12. And there's a whole bunch of tire science that goes into that we won't dive into. We do have other videos on that. If you want to check it out, you can always search our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/CustomOffsetsTV. So like I said, Nitto Ridge Grappler, that's probably going to be the best tire out there if you do a lot of hauling. When you're selecting your tires, it's really important to pay attention to your load index. So typically on like a 2500 HD, your stock tires are somewhere around a 118 load index. If you don't completely understand load index, you don't really need to know it for this video to understand my point. But like I said, we also have other videos on load index as well. You can type those in. But like I said, so 118 is like the stock load index on a tire that comes with your vehicle when you purchase it from the dealership. So basically, you know, like that is the tire that the manufacturer recommends to get your max tow capacity out of that vehicle. So if you want to upgrade your tires or change to a different size because you bought new wheels and tires, then you're going to want to make sure you don't go lower than whatever that load index is. But it can get kind of tricky. So we had thought a Nitto Ridge Grappler is an F-load, that's probably good for everything. But depending on what size tire you select, it also can change the load index. So though it might be rated as an F-load, the load index could be different. So if you compare a 33 12.5 22 to 33 12.5 18, there's going to be some noticeable differences. Obviously the biggest one that impacts towing is going to be the size of the sidewall. So 22-inch wheel, 33-inch tire, you have a very thin sidewall. Whereas if you have an 18-inch wheel and a 33-inch tire, you have a lot more sidewall. So on the 33 12.5 R22 in the Nitto Ridge Grappler, the load index is only 114. So that's going to be lower than what like a 2500 comes with stock. So that's only rated for about 2,600 pounds. Whereas if you take the exact same tire and it's still a 33 by 12.5, but it's for an 18-inch wheel, the load index actually jumps up to 122. So that gives you plenty of capacity for your vehicle if you're going to be doing hauling. That one's good for up to about 3,300 pounds. I think it's 3,305. So then you're set. That covers everything that you need to. All that information is right on our website. If you're shopping for tires, you just scroll down. It'll tell you the load range, so F load in this case, and what the load index is, and then shows you exactly how many pounds that converts out to be good for. As far as wide wheels and large negative offset wheels and how they impact towing, it's not so much about the handling characteristics of the vehicle and how they tow, but the stress that it puts on your truck. So yes, wide wheels and tires put more stress on your truck than having stock wheels, but that's part of the game, and most people just know that as a fact and accept it. It's not like you're replacing ball joints every weekend or every time you use your vehicle. It'll put more stress on there, but not enough that it really is that bothersome to most people. Obviously, a lot of the guys here drive lifted trucks, and most of us don't ever run into problems. So the negative offset and the width, yes, it impacts your truck, but not as much when towing. It really just puts more stress on your front end components like ball joints, and you have to pay attention to your CV angles and stuff when you're building your truck. So selecting a better quality kit right off the bat is something that can help you with that. So in conclusion, would we recommend towing with a lifted vehicle? And the answer is, yeah, you can tow with a lifted vehicle just fine. We have a couple guys here. I know Cody tows his boat just about every weekend. Justin tows, he's got like a, I don't know, 8x14 trailer that he tows almost every day, as well as his 30-some foot camper that he tows on the weekends with his Super Duty. That's lifted, it's got a 4-inch BDS in it. Cody's truck has a 7.5-inch rough country, and that handles fine. Sean, he's got the white CO2. We were just pulling around the Aventador on a trailer for a bit, and that was fine. So we don't usually run into issues with towing with a lifted vehicle. Even the Hummer is just leveled, but it's got really wide wheels and tires. And again, there's no major problems. In all of those vehicles though, you definitely do notice a power loss because of those larger tires, as well as just the added weight. And then again, the power loss as far as braking goes, increased stopping distance on those two because you're just adding that much more weight to it. So can you do it? Yes. Do we recommend it? Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to do. Is there anything that can help doing it? I guess selecting a quality lift kit right off the bat is important. Making sure you are able to recalibrate your speedometer, and then just keeping up on maintenance and making sure your wheel bearings are good and your angles are good and all that stuff. And you should be perfectly fine to tow with your lifted truck. Well, peace. That was the guitar solo.